carrier. So she's got the big, so I'm calling this the spots, I could call it yellow. It's just a symbol basically. So she's got this dominant gene and this recessive gene. So if they have cubs, then they could have one cub that has this dominant gene and this dominant gene from the father and the mother. So to make a whole new animal, you have to have the two. So that's the dominant. So they're going to be yellow. They're not a carrier, they're just yellow. And whatever they pass on to their offspring will be either one of those. If we go across, and we've still got this gene, so it's a big S for the female and a little s from the father, this cub will still be yellow, but it will be a carrier because it's got a little s. And the same with the father here. So if we take the mother again, so the mother gives the little s and the father gives a big S, then this is the carrier, but still a yellow cat because we've got this big S. But the interesting one comes in when the two little s's get together. And if those two come together, that could be the black leopard because it's two recessive genes. If it's got a dominant gene with it, it gets masked. So that's why we'll still see the yellow. So that hopefully might make a little bit of sense when we talk about the dominant and recessive gene. If both animals don't have this, so if they have the big S's, it will still be, so you can see big S, big S, big S, big S, big S, big S. So you'll constantly get yellow cats and no carriers. Even if you get one of the adults carrying, so we still have the big S's there, so this cub will still be completely yellow, and this cub will still be completely yellow, but this cub will be a big S and a small s from the mum, so that will be yellow, but will be carrying, and the same, so big S and little s, so that cub will be carriers. So it all depends on the dominant gene and this recessive, and that's where the black leopard comes in. So if they have the two recessive genes, one from the father, one from the mother, and it comes together, then you get a black leopard. And we believe that's how we get the strawberry leopard. So I'm going to show you the strawberry leopard because it's quite amazing, and to be honest, very, very rare. It could have occurred because of a mutation in the genes, and possibly because the gene pool shrank. Then you might get more carriers of this gene, and that's why we might get more of this strawberry leopard in a population. So if I quickly show you the picture of the strawberry leopard, there we go, so there it is. And if I actually shrink that a little bit, and I'll put it against, oh, I've got to bring up a normal leopard. Fail. But hopefully you've got the normal leopard from shadow actually in your sights. Then we have this sort of pale colouring, sort of a rusty orange, and then the black spots are actually brown. So these spots, or the rosettes, are actually brown in colour. So it lacks black pigmentation. And because there's only 18 animals in the world that we've actually been able to find, that is possibly quite a rare colour variant. But as I say, interesting that it's actually come out in so many numbers within my study site in the Leidenburg and Northwest, that one population of leopards. So it is a bit worrying, but we can't say for sure if it is recessive. But the mother, I did have the picture there of the mother, there she is. So this is the mother, she's actually normal coloured, and I totally forgot, so that was another fail because I did actually have a yellow leopard. But there she is. So that is the mother there. Oh, so she is normal coloured. If I can get it bigger for you. So yellow with the black spots. So that's why we believe it's a recessive gene, because she is normal coloured. Ah, and he has, Tristan's actually been able to reposition himself so he can see our normal coloured leopard in the form of shadow. So enjoy.
Well, we haven't really repositioned other than that Shadow has walked. She's moved quite far south from where we last had her. So she's now up a different termite mound, and all we've got is a tail. That's all we can really see at this stage. She's completely flat there, and the bad news is that she's not walking very well at all. So she looks like she's got a sore front paw that she's hobbling a little bit on. So I think that's why she's a little bit skinny. She's probably had a little bit of an issue the last few days. Hopefully it will be okay. I can't see any sign of a wound or anything like that, but she certainly is not walking with any comfort whatsoever. So hopefully it will just be something that will eventually disappear and we won't have to worry about too much. But she certainly is a tired cat. Now that she's up on the mound, she's taking it very easy, and you can see she's gone flat. There's her head on the other side there, just having a little bit of a nap. The thing is that even though her front paw is sore and the way that she's walking looks horrific, it doesn't look good, she actually managed to scale this mound as though she was a normal leopard. So I think it's more a fact that maybe she's got a thorn inside there or something that's causing a little bit of distress, and it'll eventually go away and she'll be okay. Because if I tell you, this mound is very tall. It's not a small mound at any stretch of the imagination, and it takes a lot of effort for anybody to get up there. It's steep, and so if she can get up there, then she's still able to move around when it counts. So she'll still be able to go after food if she needs to, and be able to hunt if she needs to. So it's not that big an issue just yet, I don't think, but I'm warning you, if she does walk, that it doesn't look as good as it should. She's not even putting weight on that front right leg at the moment, so hopefully it will just be a minor thing and eventually it will dissipate and she'll be okay. It's never nice when you see these kind of things, and it's always something that us as guides is probably one of the hardest things about being out here, when you see an animal that's in a little bit of discomfort. But it is nature. She doesn't, like I say, have anything that's on her foot or around her leg or anything like that. So the interesting part about it is we were chatting to some of the trackers that were tracking her yesterday, and they were saying that her tracks were normal yesterday. There was no sign of any injury yesterday. She wasn't hobbling, because when a leopard hobbles, if it will drag one of its feet, and it becomes actually quite noticeable in the tracks. So there was no sign of that yesterday, which means that it either happened during the day today or it happened last night. And so that's why I think it must be a potential thorn in the foot, or maybe she just sprained it slightly when she was chasing after something, just a little. And so today is about resting and keeping that foot up and not giving too much pressure on it, and then as it starts to heal up, she'll be all right again. So hopefully that's going to be the case. Either way, it took a lot of effort for her to get up on top of this mound, and I'm hoping that she decides just to rest up for the day and an evening here, and then starts again tomorrow with a foot that hopefully is feeling a little bit better. Toby, you're asking if the leopard ladies all get along. Toby, not necessarily. So you'll find that even Shadow, if she comes across Tundi, who is her sister, will most certainly be aggressive towards her. And the reason why is because she's now a territorial animal. That bond between her and her sister is broken. There's no longer that bond anymore. She's now severed that bond, and so they now compete for territory. They fight with one another. They make sure that they try and keep one another at bay, because they're trying to protect resources, so den sites, food items, water availability, and so they will be highly aggressive towards each other. We saw it the other day with Shongile and Tingana and Tundi. When Shongile was there, we were speaking to the guys that saw it, that Tingana and Tundi's presence made Shongile feel very uncomfortable, and you'll find that Tundi would have probably been more aggressive towards her than what Tingana would have been, and so females definitely will fight with one another given the chance. It's amazing, the camouflage there, and you can see why sometimes these cats are very difficult to spot. If you are on a road, you would struggle to see that on top of the mound. Her spots blend in absolutely perfectly, and there's that long tail is the only thing that would give it away. Otherwise you would have to really look hard to see any sign of this particular individual. Now, a lot of you are wondering where the cub is. I'm not 100% sure. The tracks for the cub was inside here with her. Just no sign of the cub. She hasn't contact called the cub yet, but there was fresh tracks this morning of that cub. So hopefully the cub is around here somewhere, and maybe as the sun starts to dip, she'll start calling, and the little cubby will come out, and we'll be able to spend some time with it. But she most certainly hasn't called or made any sort of vocalizing noises to bring the cub in, and we certainly haven't seen any sign of the cub other than the footprints that were around this morning that were from last night crossing into this area. So the cub seems to be in fine fettle, because the tracks that we had this morning was it running all over the place, up and down the road, and so that one seems to be fine. I'm sure it's just lying down somewhere enjoying a bit of shade, and Shadow will hopefully call it out a little bit later. It'd be interesting to know just how big Shadow's cub has gotten. It's been a few weeks or months since we've seen that cub, and it will be interesting to see the size difference between when we last saw it and now, because if it's already getting close to 8 months, then it means that that cub will be quite a lot bigger than when we last saw it, and it will go through a quick growth spurt now towards a year. We know that Shongile caught a massive growth spurt from her sort of 9-10 months to just over a year. She's grown quite a lot since then, so I'm sure Shadow's little cub will also do the same. But there we go, that's camouflage for you quite clearly. So Xavier, you're wondering what the most common prey item is for the leopards of the Sabi Sands. Well, in this area, most commonly they're going after impalas. That's pretty much what they target mostly, just given that there's a high percentage of impalas here. They will also go frequently for duiker and steenbok, and then also birds, mongoose, and varying other things. But impala seems to be the top of the menu for when it comes to a leopard. And like I say, it's because of the amount of impalas that are here. It just means that that's the easiest animal generally to find, so that's why they spend a lot of time hunting those. Now I think a lot of people are struggling to be able to see Shadow. There's other vehicles, and I'm just listening to the guides trying to explain where exactly she is, but I don't think they can see her because she's lying in a way that, if with the sun, is very tough to actually see her on top there, unless you're at our angle where the tail is easily visible. But that's one sleepy cat, that's for sure. But that's one sleepy cat, that's for sure. Great place for it to hide. It's got a little bit of grass on top there. It allows it then to be sort of hidden, so even if there are animals around, she can see what's going on and be able to notice and still hide away on top. So it's a perfect mound for a female leopard to, or a leopard in general, to be sitting. There we go, she's just popped her head up now, that's much better. Oh no, back down again. Are you using the grass like a pillow, Shadow? You clever girl.
Definitely, I find it so fascinating. I think just because we did find the strawberry or erythristic leopard, as it's actually known in the scientific world. The other thing I wanted to mention about the black leopard is actually in the Malaysian peninsula. The black leopard is a lot more common than the yellow or the normal coloured leopard. So it's believed that they went through, the population actually got isolated and went through this little bottleneck. So somewhere in the line there was a few black leopards that popped out because of the genetics we've just spoken about. So some of them may have carried this black gene and somehow brought about the cubs. And it seems like because there's jungle there's obviously a lot of shadow and shade. So those cubs may have actually fared better because of them being black. And over the years, they've actually done better than the lighter coloured leopards. So they seem to be a lot more prominent in that area. And as you move further west, so obviously Malaysia being right on the eastern side of Asia, so as you move further west into India and then obviously into Africa, the black leopard is obviously, it becomes less and less, and it becomes obviously a lot more arid. So just like we've been seeing with the drone footage, how dry it is, a black leopard would stick out like a sore thumb. So it wouldn't do that well. So, missed who that was from, but there was a question coming through about Alison. Hi, Alison. Asking if black leopards, black jaguars are the same thing as panthers. And yes, they are. You can use panther for a black leopard or a black jaguar. And I think you can also use it for a mountain lion, otherwise known as a Kruger as well, or puma. I have heard them being called panthers. So that cat has 4 different names. So yeah, so really fascinating stuff. And as I say, the jungle sort of working to the advantage of the black leopard, but as I say here, not so much. So I'm wondering if the strawberry leopard could be having the same thing. Maybe the lighter colours are obviously sort of more beneficial in this drier habitat. So it'd be interesting to see if that is a possibility, why we're seeing a number of strawberry leopards or erythristic leopards in my old study area. So yes, I think we're going to try and show you a clip now. For the new viewers and for the old ones, I thought we'd go down memory lane and introduce you to Karula, because I think a lot of the new viewers haven't seen her. Unfortunately, she hasn't been seen in the last 6 months, so it's not boding well, because obviously there's a lot of activity guide-wise out in the Sabi sands. So someone should have seen her. Even when her mother Safari was around, she would stick fairly close to a lodge. She only had one eye. She had this sort of strange looking bulging blue eye, but she still fared until 19 years old, but she was still being seen quite regularly, and then all of a sudden she stopped being seen. So it's very difficult to actually know exactly what happens to these cats. Obviously we see them a snapshot of their life, so we can't just walk out into the bush and stumble across them, even when they're alive. So it's even more difficult if they have perished. So unfortunately it does sound like I mean, maybe she survived, maybe she will pop up somewhere. It has happened with other leopards, but as I say, it's not sounding great for her, but obviously she's left behind an amazing legacy, and it's been fantastic to catch up with them. So I thought maybe let's meet her, for those of you who have never met her, to join on one of the drives that was just absolutely incredible. And we actually wrote a paper about this particular drive and one that Sebastian actually took, so we might have a chance to see that clip as well, because we're seeing some of those interactions with members of the family even now. So I thought it'd be quite interesting for the new viewers to maybe see it. So if we can cue the clip, hopefully you'll be able to see. Unfortunately, you get my hat in the way right at the beginning, so sorry for that, but you do get to see 4 leopards in one shot. So there we go. So you get to see, so Karula's actually at the top of the screen, the 2 cubs are the ones walking, and then Karula's mate of choice at that stage, Yambili Ordan, is actually just opposite her. Unfortunately, the footage is obviously not the quality that it is nowadays, and that is obviously one of the big improvements that we've had. But there's Karula, and obviously sort of trying to entice Yambili Ordan to partake in possibly mating, but yes, quite amazing. So you can't quite see the wow across her forehead, but Yambili Ordan has the ring of spots around his eye, and Induna actually does have that ring of spots. Or I'm not sure if Induna's still around. I haven't heard his name, but I think he got the ring of spots above his height from his father. But there you go. Yeah, you might be able to work out the heart above the eyes on Yambili Ordan, and that's Yambili is supposed to mean heart. That's where he got his name from, and he came from the Jordan Dam. So that is who we believe the father is of the second set of cubs and the third set of cubs. So that will be Mishu and Induna, the third set of cubs, and then that will also be, let me think, Shavinzi and Shivambalana. That was the 2 cubs that were actually on that clip that was just playing there. So hopefully that puts a face to the name, if that makes sense, and seeing Karula there as well. And I believe there's a little bit more of the cubs playing of that clip as well. But as I say, we up until that, we hadn't really experienced the male actually interacting with the cubs. And as I said before, we kind of think it's because there's such a high density of leopards in this area. As we said before, the leopards can actually commit infanticide. They'll actually go and kill other cubs. And that's to basically get the females back into estrus a lot sooner than what they would if the cubs were to stay with her. And they can stay with her for a year, up to a year and a half, maybe longer. I mean, Misha and Induna stayed with Karula for a good couple of years before they moved on. Induna actually stayed in the area, and I'm wondering actually if we could maybe play that clip of Induna, Yambili Ordan and the 2 cubs, because I think we've managed to find that clip as well, so we might be able to play that for you. But as I say, I wanted to kind of show you that it has been happening, and the legacy is here, and we're seeing these interactions. So I think we can actually view that clip so it'll be Yambili Ordan again, the father, who we believe is the father, and the 3-year-old son, Induna. Oh, this is the 2 cubs playing, sorry. This is Shavinzi and Shivambalana actually playing in the tree, so that was just following on from the other clip. Oh. No problem. We've got a very unusual situation because, as I say, male leopards are supposed to, once they've grown up, after about 2 years old, they're supposed to move away, and that's supposed to avoid inbreeding with their sisters, their mothers. But as I say, there's not as many territories around. They've all been taken, and because we've got such a high leopard density, I'm wondering if they're being tolerated a lot longer because they are family. And as I say, even by the fathers, who we believe are the fathers, maybe the males believe they're their father, and that's possibly why we're having this tolerance of the younger males. So I think we do have the right clip this time. So we'll see if we can actually see that. And the opening clip should be the male. That's it. So we've got Yambili Ordan, the father, on the right of the clip, and we've got Induna, the 3-year-old son, on the left. And you can see how close they are. Now, I can't remember if he actually turns around to look at us, but you might be able to see that ring of spots over his eye if he does. And as I say, Seb was actually driving that day, and I was on camera, and we both were just going crazy. So here we go. This is the youngster. This is Shivambalana. So this is the year-old cub coming in, past his 3-year-old brother, and you can see his 3-year-old brother's not so keen. But you can see he doesn't lash out, and I'm so intrigued at why Shivambalana decided to come and sit by him. But as I say, a little bit having his nose pushed out of joint, but then you'll see he actually sits back down again.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And there's a little bit of tetchiness between them, but there's no actual pause or anything like that clashing. Really quite amazing. So again, we actually added this to the paper. Now in Induna, you might actually notice Hosanna actually has that very heavy makeup underneath his eye, and I think I was saying this the other day, I think Induna actually has similar markings to his younger brother, and the bat wing underneath his eye on the right, that's how we used to ID him.
It's amazing.
Hi Vicky, a new viewer, also saying, realising how special these multi-leopard sightings actually are. And it really is. As I say, leopards are thought to be solitary, but we're proving that wrong. And as I say, you can see they actually settle down together. There's no more aggression from them. So yeah, really some bizarre behaviour, and that's why we thought, you know what, we need to get it out there as well, because as I say, it's not normal leopard behaviour. If you read the books, like as well, I keep saying, these leopards don't read the books. No animal reads the books. They do what they want to do. And the problem is, obviously, we've had a few tears. Yeah, there are a few tears from a few people. And as I say, it is very sad, but I still think absolutely amazing that we've got such a wonderful legacy to be following. And as I say, we are seeing these interactions, and that's why to actually share this with people, and maybe change what is known about the leopards. And as I say, you guys are actually on this journey with us. This is what I really love about Safari Live and what we do. We are changing what is known about these animals by showing it live. You know, we're not cutting, we're not editing. It is all there as it's like I keep saying, as it's unfolding, because that for me is something so special, because you really get to understand why an animal has done something. When it's edited and it's clipped, you might not get what happened before, what happened afterwards. You're just seeing the bit in the middle, and seeing the bits either side are very, very important. And as I say, we've actually had multiple leopard sightings recently, I believe. I think there's been the kill with, I think, Tandy, Tamba and Hosanna actually on the same kill together. And again, Hosanna is the fifth cub of Karula. Tandy is the first cub, so I think they obviously have met. We've seen them together, but maybe even previous to that, they might have met with Karula. You never know. And obviously, Tamba interacting with Hosanna as well, so knowing each other. They are cousins, so perhaps there's that familiar smell amongst the family group. Who knows? But because this is so new, it's still literally at the cutting edge of science. Really quite amazing. So I think we're going to cut back to Tristan and see how Shadow, I think, possibly is... Oh, we're going to the drone. Sorry, we have the drone. So I think Connor really enjoying himself with the drone this afternoon. So I think we're going to cut to the drone and see. There's the mast, so that is what is broadcasting this live feed from the African bush to you right now. And there is the herd of elephants we've actually caught up with again. So making their way, just trying to orientate myself. So that's just at the back of the quarantine area. I wonder if they're going to come up towards the tent. That would be quite something, having the elephants around the tent. Now, I'm just hoping we don't have any elephant bones here, because there is an interesting story of elephants going up to the Olifants camp in Kruger, and there used to be 2 ivory tusks on the gates, and the elephants kept nicking off with them. So they had to replace them. Oh, there's 2 youngsters playing just under the bush. So I'm trying to work out who it is. That could be the lodge that we're flying over now.
I think that's another pulse one.
That's the poles,
Yeah.
of SC. That could well be, yes. Ah, there's the aerial, yes. Oh, and I'm hearing the drone now. There we go. Again, a nice tree to be. The poles of SC. That could well be, yes. Ah, there's the aerial, yes. Oh, and I'm hearing the drone now. There we go. Again, a nice tree to be. It's like two tribes go to war. This is exactly why they're called babblers, because of the babble that they make. Well, while they carry on their little fight, we'll we'll have a look at, say, at these spines here, or thorns. So I'm just trying to remember which way around it is. It's a little bit etchy on that one, but as I say, modified leaves. So the plant has to decide, do I protect myself or do I make food? Because with the leaves, they contain chlorophyll, which can then, using sunlight and using the carbon and the water, they can actually create food for itself. So obviously if they have leaves, they can't protect themselves, and if they have too many thorns, they can't make enough food. So they have to have this balance. So where there's a lot of animals feeding on them, you'll find a lot of the thorns, so that it can actually protect itself. But where you find animals that aren't feeding on them so much, you will actually find more leaves. So it all depends on how much pressure there is on the acacias and obviously the other trees around, but certainly the acacias, and that will then dictate what it's actually producing. You can even find on the same tree, one side, if the animals aren't able to get to that side of the tree, you won't really find thorns there because it's already protected somehow. So whether there's trees on either side that block animals being able to get there, sometimes if the tree's on the road, and as we've seen, the animals use the road, so they'll actually be able to get to that side easier. So you'll sometimes find more thorns on that side than on the back side. If you go into the centre of quite a tall tree, again, the animals can't get there, so you won't find as many thorns. So it all depends on the feeding pressure of the animals, and that's why it has to work out, let's say, do I protect myself or not? Now the reason why the acacias have the thorns is because everything wants to eat them, because this particular type of tree actually is able to produce or to take nitrogen and actually make it into something the plant can use, and that's because it has the bacteria on its roots. So it can actually do that by itself. It doesn't need to worry about what the other plants are doing. So the other plants, they have to rely on bacteria that live in the soil to package it up for them. So they can't just take the nitrogen out of the soil. It has to be packaged in a certain way so that they can then take it in and utilize it. So that's why the acacias are so nutritious and so desirable for a lot of the browsing animals, like the giraffe, like the kudu and the nyalas. Hey, I'm not part of this fight. So I think we're going to head over to see how Tristan's doing, and we'll catch you again shortly.
Well, not much has changed, as you can see. She's still flat on the top of her termite mound. Her legs and tail is all that is visible at the moment, so still taking it very easy. And I would imagine that maybe with this injury that she's got, she's dragged herself around a little bit today and is probably quite exhausted, given that she did walk quite a bit from where that previous termite was all the way to here. So once that sun goes down, it'll be an indication of whether or not she actually is going to get up and start moving. But for now, she seems to be very flat and very sleepy. You can see quite nicely that longer, more elongated back leg that we see on leopards. So you'll find that those there are designed all to keep the leopard's speed up. And they'll have much longer, almost marathon-like legs, as opposed to the front legs, which are the power legs that get that initial burst for them to be able to run and catch or surprise an animal. And these ones will then provide a bit of speed over a longer distance. But those paws have seen many a kilometer, you can see, or mile should we say. You can see that they're quite well worn, and it's become very hard and calloused, and so she'll be able to walk over all kinds of things with those without having to worry too much. And you can also see very clearly now the three lobes that we always talk about on the back of the foot. So they're always there, and then the paws that are quite tight up against the pad. So I know Tara was referring to it yesterday, I think. Must have been yesterday morning, or previous morning when she was tracking that lion, and she was talking about how the lion's toes tend to be much further away from the pad than the leopard's, and you can see there the leopard's toes are right up against the pad itself, not too much space between them. You can also see that the pad itself, even though the foot will look slightly bigger, the pad itself is much smaller than what the actual feet are, with all the fur and everything else that you see there. Nice big oval shape as well. Now, interesting enough, with some of these animals, if you actually have a look at their pads, sometimes you can find certain markings that are in the pad itself that allow you to then follow the track and be able to see that it is that exact individual. There was a leopard down in the south of Sabi Sands called Shovo, and Shovo had a cross in his track. So it was a scar that he had on his foot in the shape of a cross, and when he walked you would actually see the cross in the track itself, and you were able to then work out that it was him just from the sand marks that were left behind. So each of these animals do have these individual shapes, and imagine if we actually took molds of each track when they had walked around and we knew exactly who it was. It would be quite cool to see if we could pick up any little nuances in any of our cats that we see up here, and see if we couldn't actually learn their tracks a little bit. It might be quite a cool exercise to do at some point, particularly when we get the rainier months and we get nice big muddy pug marks. Those are much easier to make molds of, and then we can look in the tent and see if we can't find any signs under the microscope. Now, apparently Alice says she can certainly help us with that. Well, Alice, yes, Alice is very into art, and so is Megan, and the two of them are often playing with plaster of Paris, and I've seen all kinds of bits of plaster of Paris on tree bark and on sand and on all kinds of things as they've made shapes and creations, and so they most certainly would be able to help us. It would be quite nice, actually, I think, to get a whole bunch of those tracks and get them for the tent. It would be cool to get the Birmingham Boy collection or the Nguma Pride or some of our leopards and actually have the real footprints in the tent that we could talk about. I think that's a project that maybe we should start doing. We'll carry around a bit of plaster of Paris mix with us and try and set out some of them. The problem with them is it's got to dry, and sometimes they then get ruined by other animals, but it certainly will be a good experiment. You can see the sun is just set now off to the right, so just behind the Drakensbergs. It's now dropped down towards Mariepskop, which is where our radio connections are, and actually where all of this gets to you guys. So signal gets sent onto the top of that mountain and then get broadcast around the world. So that's where it all happens, the magic. And it's also the magic of the sunset that's just taken place as well behind the mountains. It is a nice clear day, actually. I'm surprised. Generally at this time of the year it's quite hazy, but you can see today is actually quite clear. Now, Chantal, can you just repeat the name for me, because I didn't get that very clearly. So, Spidey, you were wondering how we broadcast from the bush and how we have Wi-Fi and internet out here. Well, Spidey, we're fortunate in that the particular area that we're in at the moment, there's not too far, is actually a small town called Hoedspruit, and so there's quite a lot of businesses there that can help us with what goes on. Now, in terms of actually how the broadcast gets sent out and how it's received and how it's amplified and all of those kind of things, I have absolutely no idea. Unfortunately, I'm not very into that side of things and the tech side of it, but we do have an incredible tech team with Connor and Alex and Peter and Jared, and they all do unbelievable work to be able to bring this to all of you guys. So somehow they connect all kinds of things, as Brent says, thingamajiggies, and they get connected all together, and then it gets pushed to all of you. It still baffles my mind that we can sit here in the middle of the bush and be able to send you guys a signal all over the world of a wild leopard sitting on a termite mound. It is absolutely incredible. It's something that still blows my mind on a day-to-day basis, and it's just the biggest blessing to be able to do it, to open it up to so many people around the world. So many people that could potentially not get here or are not able to get into this area, or whatever the case may be, that they get the ability to watch and to witness and to see all of these animals on a live basis is absolutely amazing. You can see she's fast asleep. Her eyes are not even open at the back. Their ears are not even twitching at this stage. So she really is very, very sleepy. Safari Wildman, you're wondering if she's going to try and climb a tree to protect herself overnight. Now, I highly doubt she's going to be able to climb a tree. when I say when she was walking badly, she's walking quite badly. She's not really putting weight on that front leg, she's carrying it up. So to climb a tree requires pretty much their front legs mostly, so they use massive amounts of power and from those chest muscles and those front legs that then grip onto the tree and then pull themselves up. So I don't think she's going to be able to have the strength to do that with an injury on her front paw like that, and it's probably why she's found this mound. This mound is massive and is quite steep, and it's going to be difficult for other animals to find her up there. Even her scent and things like that is going to be above the level of things like hyenas and lions, and so hopefully she would be able to just to sit on top and go unnoticed. And so that's probably why she went up this particular mound, because she was sitting on the mound back there and she kind of saw this one and walked straight to it. She didn't even divert in her movement at all, straight up and then lay on top immediately. So maybe that's why she's gone up there, is just to seek a bit of refuge while she nurses this injury. But I think climbing a tree would be a step too far for her at this stage. It really, like I say, looks as though she's in quite a bit of discomfort, so I don't think that she would be able to exert that energy or even have the ability to climb the tree properly right now, unless it was in a life or death situation. If she had proper motivating factors, it's amazing what adrenaline can do and what can push through a body. I would imagine if lions were behind her or something like that, she would be able to get up, but I don't think she's going to voluntarily do it if she can help it. I think she's going to try to spend more time on an area like this where she can just rest and relax. Now, I know a lot of you will be very worried about her, and it is always a worrying thing, and unfortunately it's going to be a situation where time's going to have to tell as to how things play out. Like I said, the fact that she got up this mound is an encouraging sign already. At the end of the day, this mound, like I said to you, is very steep, and she couldn't just get up there hobbling. She had to run up there, and so she did put a bit of weight on her front leg. It probably hurt a little bit, but she did get up and she did manage. And so that means if the adrenaline pumps when she's hunting or if she's being chased by anything, it should be enough to get her through and get her out and about and out of the danger zone, or able to then get some sort of food item. So I think she'll be okay. It's going to be, like I say, interesting to try and see her over the next couple days and see if it gets any better or if she carries on holding it the way she is. But I'm hoping it's just a little slight sprain and it's very sensitive today, but by a day or two's time she starts putting pressure on, and slowly but surely it eases up. Now, if you need a bit more encouragement than that, there was a lioness down in the south of the Sabi Sands called Floppy or Mandlev, as she's known, and she actually walked around with a dislocated hip for over a year. She had this hip where she only walked on 3 legs, and she still managed somehow to survive. She wasn't even with the pride at that stage. Look, now she's going to get up. Let's see if she's going to walk. You can see she's ginger in her movements when she's adjusting, so that front leg, it must be a little bit painful. Shame, my girl. It's not pleasant at all. But anyway, this female from this lion pride, she eventually, the muscles and the ligaments and all that obviously healed around that dislocated leg, and she actually came right. And if you see her now, she doesn't look as though she's had any damage to her leg whatsoever. So there is hope, and there is always a bit of resilience from wild animals. They're far more resilient to us as people, and we sometimes see injuries and we think, oh, that's going to be a life-threatening injury, and they come out of it. We've seen many of our lions have injuries, lots of our leopards have injuries, and somehow these guys, the will to survive and that instinct to survive just kicks in, and they're able to drag themselves through it. So hopefully that's going to be the case. She seems to have spotted something now. You see how her head is moving a little bit, and she's just checking around. I wonder if there isn't maybe a prey item that she might have seen somewhere south of her, that she's just watching just to see what's going on. At least we know that the Nkuhumas have gone past her already last night, so the Nkuhumas went into the west and have already walked through this area, so I doubt that they're going to be through here, which is a good thing for her. And also we know that Tingana has been busy with Tundi and in far south of us, so at least she should be okay from those 2 threats. She'll be alright in being able to not have to manage any of that, and hopefully she'll be able to spend some time with her cub this evening and be alright. Shame, my girl. Sorry that you're not feeling well. Just readjusting, I think. I don't think she's going to get off the mound anytime soon, and it looks as though she's just trying to get herself into a bit more of a comfortable position. As we can see, she's just fallen asleep now. So I don't think she's going to be, or maybe not. Let's see. No, there she goes. So you'll see she's going to hobble her way around a little bit, unfortunately. The little tail is twitching somewhat. What have you seen? Now let's just see where she's going to go now off the mound. We've been sitting patiently with it. Oh no, she's just repositioning. You can see it's uncomfortable for her to sit. I'm just going to try and go round a little bit so we can try and see. And while I reposition, let's go back to Tara in the tent. And I'm sure she's still on all things leopards as she normally is. And so hopefully she'll have lots of more tidbits and information for all of you.
Yeah, so I've been having another rummage around, see what else is here. As I say, I do feel like a kid in the candy shop. But there was a couple of things that, again, we've sort of touched on in Drive, and it would be quite nice to actually show you. So we've been talking about the predator versus prey and where the eye sockets are. So if you have a look, did anyone actually come back about this skull? Did anyone give what skull this belongs to? I'm just wondering. If there has been, or if there's anybody that wants to send it through, what the skull this was, hashtag Safari Live or YouTube. But if you have a look at the herbivores, you can see the eyes on the side. Cheeky Deaky Deb saying hyena for this skull down here. I'll tell you something, if this was the size of a hyena, I would not be walking around. No. So the hyena is this one here, so quite a big size difference there, hopefully you can see. So yeah, so the eyes on the side of the head, because then that gives them almost 180 degrees on either side of the head, so they can almost see 360 degrees around them, so it just gives them a really good point of view, and obviously keeping a lookout for the predators. So yeah, we've got, this is a herbivore. I'll give you that hint. So again, we've got the eyes there. We've got the buffalo here, eyes on the side of the head, same sort of thing. Who else have we got in here? So I don't think we've got, oh, there we go, giraffe down here. We've got, D-Heart and Samantha. It is a zebra. Well done. So zebra. Funnily enough, actually, if I show you, let's see. I'm trying my best, James. I'm not going to mix anything up, but don't want to throw anything off either. So if I can maybe move this out the way, and then hopefully Sunzo can get in there and maybe have a look at the teeth here. So we've got the incisors on the zebra and the canines are here. So this could be a female actually. The canines actually look very similar to the incisors on the zebra. They're not as pointed as ours. As I say, with the males they tend to be a bit larger, and those are used for fighting. And then we have the cheek teeth, or the molars and premolars along here. So quite nice and gruesome. So then we have the animals who have what we call the binocular vision. So that's all our predators and the monkeys and things like that, the omnivores, because obviously they need to be able to see distance, and that's really why you have the eyes sort of as we do, so we can gauge distance. So the monkeys here, this probably is a vervet monkey, looking at our hyena skull again, so the eyes are looking forward. On the leopards there as well, and the baboon, if I pull the leopard out and the baboon again, then you can see the eyes again looking directly ahead with that binocular vision. So I think since we've been talking about binocular vision, I think we're going to go and see if we can get a better view of something else with that gaze from a predator.
There we go, it's about as good a visual as you're going to get on binocular vision when it comes to a leopard. So it's Shadow just watching us, and at the moment there's a few wildebeest that are just further down that she's been paying attention to. So just now I was saying that she spotted something, and it was a herd of wildebeest that was walking in the background. They've subsequently actually moved off as a vehicle went past, and she's still just looking around, but still no sign of her calling at all for her cubs, or for her cubs, should I say. She's still just sitting on the mound, watching around and just taking in what's moving in this area. I would imagine that there is something else that she's seen now. I'm just trying to look in the distance to see if I can't see anything, because she's now fixated in a different area. That's not those wildebeest. Maybe there was some kudu. I saw kudu earlier in that direction, as well as a steenbok, so I wonder if she hasn't spotted one of those. Doesn't she look beautiful up on that mound? Now, I'm not quite sure what's going on, but my earpiece doesn't seem to be wanting to stay together, and so I believe a lot of you are loving this, which is what I got from Chantal. I hope that's what I got from Chantal, because it seems to have just... It's been... My earpiece keeps coming apart. It's got two little sections to it that keep kind of disjoining, which I've now hopefully sorted out once and for all, and I believe a lot of you are enjoying her up on the mountain, that she looks beautiful up there. It is very pretty when she sits like that with her head up and we can actually see her. It's much better than what we had just now with just the little tail. Not that you don't have a good looking tail, Will, it's just your face is prettier. And you can see now, this is a very interesting part, is Tara's been talking a lot about leopards, but when we think about aging leopards and how we age a leopard, if you had to show a photo of that to somebody, I guarantee you that they will tell you that this is a young female. And the reason why is because a lot of people will try age leopards using their nose, and so they check the nose and they think a pink nose means that this animal is young, which we know in this case is untrue. So Shadow is a older female. I mean, she's now over 10 years old, and her nose is still completely pink. But if you look at her ears now in relation to her nose, you see lots of little nicks and screws and cuts out of there. There's a few bits of termite damage. I mean, not termites, tick damage. I don't know why I said termites. Maybe because she's sitting on a termite mound, but there's a bit of tick damage there. So that just shows you that she's a little bit on the older side. So it's not always the nose that you can use when it comes to aging of a cat. So you need to use a number of different factors. It is a little bit unusual that she does have still such a very pink nose. I saw it also with Quatile. She used to have a fairly pink nose in her older years as well. So it's not always that uncommon for cats to have it. Look at how her pupils are starting to get bigger and bigger as the sun's going down. Those pupils are dilating more and more to allow more light into the eye so she can see better. So Riti, you're asking why leopards enjoy being on top of mounds. Well, there's two reasons, Riti. One is a safety aspect. Being up there, she can see if there's any other potential danger items coming anywhere near her, so she can be able to see if, let's say, lions or hyenas or other leopards made their approach. And up there, her scent is not carrying around nearly as much, and so a lot of animals might miss her up there. The second reason is it's a great vantage point when looking for prey items. At this stage, she's starting to get into that dusk period, which is a highly active period for leopard. Leopard tend to move around a lot just after sunset, and so you'll find this is an time of day when they actually do a lot of hunting. And so from up there, she's able to spot prey items quite effectively and work out where she needs to position herself in order to be more successful when it comes to hunting. So that's why they favor mounds so much, is it's twofold. And sometimes you'll find even in the summer months, it's just to get a bit of a breeze up there as well, to stay a little bit cooler. But look at that, isn't that spectacular? The colours in the background, leopard on top. It's about as good as it gets. So Michelle, you say she's so dainty looking. Well, it's a trait of Karula's female offspring. All of the females that I've seen have the same dainty appearance. So Tandi, Shadow, Shavinzi, and Shongile all do look the same. They have this kind of small, dainty appearance, and they all look very cute, actually. And I've always said that Tandi is probably one of the best-looking leopards, female leopards, particularly when she was younger. She had a very cute face. And Shavinzi was also a cute leopard. I always wonder where the Shavinzi ended up. I would love to know. Fortunately, she seemed to just disappear up into the Manyaleti, and no one's really heard much about her since her disappearance. But Shongile as well. Shongile, I find, looks more like her mom than any of the others. She looks just like Karula, and especially in certain poses. It'll be interesting as Shongile grows up if she's going to start to take on those same features that Karula did when she was an adult. It'll be very cool to see. But we were talking about it last night, Tara and myself, and how these leopards from Karula's bloodline all look so similar. They have that same genetic look to them. And then if you go onto the other side towards Salaesh and all of them, very different look that they've got. Right, now Shadow is watching a truck coming past and she's paying attention to that, and we're going to carry on with her and hope that she finds something that she can potentially start stalking. So while we do that, let's go back to Tara, who's now swapped her spotted coat chat for a more scaly, slithery skin to talk about.
Yeah, I actually found this, and it was curled up just behind the beautiful pattern of the scales on the puff adder, and this looks quite a decent sized puff adder as well, and it actually did come off all in one. And again, I believe this was actually donated, so these are the scales underneath, so you can in one. And again, I believe this was actually donated, so these are the scales underneath, so you can see quite a lot larger, and that helps with the movement of the snake, so they can press into the soil and they can actually slither along, or using the muscles on their belly. So this particular kind of snake does actually move in what they call a rectilinear motion, so it can actually go in a straight line across the road. If they really need to move fast, then they'll do that very typical motion, but otherwise, as I say, they can use these scales to sort of dig into the ground, and they'll contract the muscles and then relax and expand the muscles so that the next set can then contract, and it kind of pulls them along. So quite amazing sort of movement, if you like. So I want to have a look underneath the microscope. V-shell saying a beautiful snake, and it actually is. I mean, you can see the coloration here really blends in very well with the bush, and I think a lot of people, there we go, there's the microscope, so you can see it's almost like sandpaper, the scales, and they've got that ridge down the centre of it. Now some other snakes don't actually have that, so some of the other snakes are very smooth and shiny, and it's funny actually, the general rule of thumb seems to be, you know, sort of shiny snakes are venomous, but I say the puff adder is obviously one of the exceptions to that rule, because they are quite dull, and a lot of people are worried that when they go walking through the bush they might actually find a puff adder. I've been walking in the bush for 10 years and actually have found no puff adders on foot. The one I did find, it was actually close to where my car was parked, and it was eating a frog at the time, but usually you hear them hissing, and that's where it gets its name from, the puffing. So they actually puff themselves out, and it will be these scales that will actually rub against each other when it puffs itself out. So it's kind of like that's what you hear, but obviously when it's not as crinkly, then you can actually it doesn't sound as dry, so it sounds more like sandpaper rubbing, and that's what you hear when they actually do puff themselves out. So I think we're going to go back and see how Shadow is doing. Hopefully she is going to be okay, but as Tristan said, there has been leopards that have had worse injuries, so hopefully she'll be okay.
Well, we're just following her. She's just come down the mound now, and funnily enough, there's actually some wild dogs that are not far from here, and I wonder if she hasn't seen those dogs, and that's why she's running. The dogs apparently are just inside Arethusa, heading in this general direction, and you can see, look at her, how she's battling to run and walk. She's hobbling quite badly, unfortunately. She's just stopped. I think she's seen those dogs, and she's now trying to get into a place where she can get out of the way of them at this stage. Right, so let's just see what's going to play out here, because like I say, these dogs are not far away, so if the dogs do show up, we will extend a little bit, but there we go. You can see now she's moving off again. Shame, my girl, you're struggling with that foot. No, now she's lying down again. Just going to try and get forward a little bit. She's just bounding off slightly. Where are you going, my girl? shame. She's really struggling with this foot. I think I'm actually going to leave her. I don't want to put any pressure on her anymore. I think with her watching what's going on and the way that she's walking, it really is not something I really want to be with if the dogs arrive, because her ability to maneuver herself is not going to be as easy, and I don't want to attract too much attention to her at this stage. Shame, she's just sitting behind. You can see her watching there. Let's see if she's going to carry on now. She's just stopped and listening. I saw lots of cars just off to our side here, so I would imagine that's where the dogs were. That's where I thought, or heard, that they were coming. So I think she's come to investigate what's happening as well, but it's not a good thing. Wild dogs, when it comes to leopard, are a problem. You'll find wild dogs will chase leopards at the first sign they can get, so she needs to rather stay clear of that as much as possible. Now she's just watching. I don't know where those dogs must have gone to. They must have moved off. Now, I just want to see quickly here. I'm just looking. I've got a gap onto the road now, so I'm just having a little check to see if I can't see anything, but I don't see any sign of these dogs anywhere, so that's good news. Makes me a little bit happier that she's not got dogs anywhere too close to her. And so we'll actually stay a little bit longer now that the dogs are not here. They must have crossed further south of us, which is fantastic news. That's better. I would rather the dogs go further south, and as much as I would love to see the dogs on this particular occasion, I would rather they avoided us completely, and we'll try and see if we can't find them in the morning instead of them being with Shadow. Now, Donnie, you say you feel the same. I agree. I always love seeing the puppies, and they are an extra special animal to see, and we're fortunate that we can spend time with wild dogs here, and they're not a common sighting. But in this situation, just for Shadow's sake, I would rather she didn't come across those dogs. Where are you going to go from here, my girl? Okay, but she's not really moving now, so it's fine. And I can hear now the dogs have moved off more south of us, which is good news. So they've gone more towards Zoe's side and the fire break area than they have this way, which is fantastic. So we don't have to stress anymore, which is good news. I'm quite glad about that. I was a bit worried about her for a second. Shame, my girl. It's not walking nicely at all. I wonder what else she spotted here, because she must have seen something that she moved off. Sorry, Seb, I'm just taking the light away just to shine quickly in case there is anything else. But she must have spotted something in this particular vicinity, because she came sort of bounding this way, even with her bad leg. Right, I just want to go around quickly. Now, Jonathan, you were wondering if she can hunt with her bad leg. Well, Jonathan, I'm not 100% sure if she would be able to. I think moving around quite a bit, so I suppose she will be okay. It's going to be interesting to see, like I say, over the next little bit, how she goes. And you see, looks like she wants to maybe groom there. So, Seb, I'm going to just turn this light for you, Seb, instead. Shame, my girl. Take that spotlight off. Now, we definitely will try and find those dogs in the morning. It's been an incredible afternoon with the Ellies and getting aerial views and all the info that Tara has imparted on us in the tent. And, well, spending time with Shadow is never, ever the worst way to spend an afternoon. So I'm certainly very thrilled that we managed to find Shadow, and we've managed to spend some quality time with her. And I'll try and see if I can't find her again tomorrow morning, or at least I'll actually think that Tara should come out this way. It would be great for Tara to see Shadow, and so hopefully she'll be somewhere close by, and I don't think she's going to move around too much this evening. But it's that time of the day, unfortunately, that we're going to say goodbye. So from Tara and Senzo, myself and Sebastian, we'll see you all on the Sunrise Safari.